Coming up, how did the blind person cross the road? Safely, that's how. Also, glasses that swear at you, and a keyboard that talks.
You're listening to Double Tap, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Steven Scott and Shaun Priest.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Tuesday's Double Tap. How are you, Shaun Priest?
I am good, thank you, Steven Scott. How are you?
Or Johnny Breeze?
Johnny Breeze, as AI likes me to be known. You know what? I've given up. We shouldn't push back. AI always knows better than us. I like Johnny Breeze, actually. It does sound a bit showbiz, doesn't it? Johnny Breeze.
I've decided if I ever moved to America or Canada, obviously, my preferred of the Americans.
Of course.
Then I would change my name to Scott Stevens.
Scott Stevens.
That's like a very American DJ name, isn't it? It's like Scott Stevens on AMI.
That has got a ring to it, but then as someone with two first names as your full name, you know, anything sounds better. Steven Scott. What's that all about? Thank you.
Okay. Are you disparaging my name?
I'm not. I'm just saying.
With a name like Shaun Priest, if you want to get into it. Shaun Priest.
No, look, Priest is a ridiculous name. We all know, and everyone calls me Priest for all of my life. But the point being, it's a proper surname. I mean, Steven Scott. Scott is a first name. It's not a surname.
Everybody calls me Scott. It's funny about interviews I do where people interchange. They call me Stephen at the start and Scott at the end, which I guess makes sense.
As long as they don't call you Steve, that's the main thing.
We're off on tangents already.
Sorry.
Look, there's a lot to get through today, Shaun. We're not mucking around over here today.
You sure? Well, it feels like it.
Kind of are, I suppose. Someone noticed that we were being promoted by AMI. Well, we were kind of promoting AMI ourselves, I guess, because we did an advert for them. To help promote a campaign to encourage you out there, you dear listener, to get involved with AMI and tell AMI basically what you think of the channel. And I guess us and our listener Tim Dixon, good friend of the show as well, has noted this. And he's raised concerns already. He thinks that this could be our undoing.
What, asking people to tell AMI what they think of us?
Yeah.
Yeah, it rings alarm bells for me as well, to be honest. Did we actually do that advert?
We did do that advert. It was airing yesterday on social media. And I've got to say, I am now nervous because I feel that our demise is coming soon.
Yes. But either way, hey, have your say. Let AMI know what you think of us and other shows as well.
Well, exactly. I mean, there's amazing shows. You get AMI Today. You've got the Kelly & Co. show back again, which is great.
Kelly & Co. show. It's difficult to say.
Kelly & Co. Well, that's not what it's called. It's called Kelly & Co. But I call it the Kelly & Co. show because I prefer saying that. But no, it's great shows and loads to check out on AMI, of course. Brilliant shows across the TV and radio network. And, you know, there's little old us somewhere in the middle. I still to this day think to myself, what are we doing here amongst these smart people?
Okay.
But then maybe I shouldn't say that because that could be furthering my own demise.
Yes, let's leave it as it is. Yes. Contact AMI with your thoughts. Thank you.
You get nervous, aren't you?
I am slightly, yes. Please like us. Thank you. Wow.
Well, listen, coming up today, we are going to be talking all about the Mantis Q40 getting the text-to-speech update. I have mine here, Shaun. It is sitting, waiting. Oh, listen to that.
I can't hear anything. There's no speech.
What are you talking about?
What are you
It's not
talking?
on there yet. What are you talking about?
Right.
It's coming soon. Details to follow.
I've got a question about that.
Well, that would not surprise me. You seem to be forever bringing questions. You're becoming the grumpy man of this show, and I don't like it.
No. I'm asking the questions that matter. We'll find
We're
out.
becoming the Muppets. Well, in particular, the two old Muppets.
We called that before.
Yes, we called it many a time, actually, yeah. But look, before all that, I want to mention a couple of other stories that I spotted. One being that the OCO app, the app which recently launched in Canada, is now, once again, actually for the second year running, a finalist. Last year it won, but this year again a finalist in Apple's App Awards for the end of the year. These are pretty prestigious awards, and of course, think how many apps are in the Apple App Store. To become a finalist there is pretty huge. Now, we did actually speak to Michael Janssen, who is the CEO and founder of the OCO app. He told us a little bit about their win last year, but also about the app itself.
We won the 2024 Apple Design Awards, specifically in the inclusivity category. And it was phenomenal. On Sunday, there was like a reception with the award being given to us. And on Monday, we had the opportunity to actually watch the WWDC 24 keynote. And it was just phenomenal because we've been all Apple geeks since we were small. So it's just a dream come true to both be there and then at the same time get the award. So yeah, very, very cool. So basically what we want to do with the Oko app is that we want to reimagine how 1.4 billion people with a mobility disability, how they navigate and explore cities or just places in general. And so we started off all the way in the beginning about 2.5 years ago that we launched our Oko app in Belgium. We first started with tackling a challenge, which is pretty huge amongst the community, which is indeed crossing the street, getting access to the pedestrian signal. And so that's something that we've been doing for, let's say, 2.5 years now. We're using the back camera of your iPhone and artificial intelligence to visually interpret whether the pedestrian signal is green or red, or in the US and Canada, they mostly call it walk or don't walk sign. And so that's something that we've been known for the past 2 years. And then pretty recently, we've actually taken a new step into that bigger vision, which is more navigation and exploration. And so actually what we've developed is, and what we're actually still developing, is accessibility maps. Because if you think about general maps, Apple Maps, Google Maps, Blind Square, or any kind of maps, most of them are tailored for cars. So there's no real navigation app that is like bottom up built for helping pedestrians navigate, let alone people that might have different needs, of course. And so that's ultimately our main focus, to really help pedestrians navigate cities. And so in that perspective, we actually see maps and AI working pretty closely together. If you open up the app, you can either search a destination, which will typically give you turn-by-turn directions. But what's interesting, and that's where we're trying to make the difference, is that we want to include and provide more accessibility information. So whenever you're, for example, coming onto an intersection, we announce that intersection, like the streets that you're getting across. But we go even a step further, that we also want to say, is it a signalized intersection, or is it just a stop sign or a marked crossing? And so the beautiful thing about having both that navigation aspect is that if you come to a signalized intersection, for example, all you need to do is tilt the phone, so raising the phone will trigger the camera to come on and the AI to look for pedestrian signals. So it's a beautiful integration between like getting turn by turn, navigating, and whenever you do feel that you need access to, for example, the pedestrian signal, you can just take out your phone, and tying both the navigation and the AI is what we hope, of course, a very seamless way of navigating and helping you around.
So that was Michael Janssen there, who's the CEO and founder of the Oko app, explaining in far better words than I could use about the app and how it works and how it functions. It was in the US for a long time. It hasn't reached the UK yet, but it did arrive in Canada earlier this year, which is fantastic news. We did bring you that story earlier in the year. But I thought it was good to just revisit what the app is and how it works, because this is the kind of thing that's really important, isn't it, when you're out and about and navigating. It's an app I'd love to try.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. And more than that, it's one of those things where you hear about it for a long time. I've been hearing about this app for years. But because you tend to just to think, oh, okay, so that's not available here. And then you just forget about it. I think it is important to always keep up on these things. It's a bit like Good Maps, the indoor navigation, where I just assumed it was US only for the longest time. It wasn't until I looked into it again recently. Oh, it's available here in the UK. It's the same thing. These apps are rolling out to different countries all the time. So it's always good to keep up on these.
It's funny, though, I was looking through the finalist lists, to see if there was any accessibility apps in there. No, that's when I found Oko, and I was like, oh, that's fantastic. But then I was looking through all these other apps, and there's like games in there that sound quite good. And you ever read an app description and go, that sounds brilliant, but it's not going to be accessible, so just forget it.
Yeah, well, we do that all the time. We do that for everything. TV shows, movies, everything, yeah.
Oh, so I know I'm not going to get down the AD route. I promise. I'm not going to talk about
Except
description. Except to say, so obviously it's coming up to holidays, right? So I'm like, all these movies are popping up, and there's like dramas from earlier in the year that perhaps have popped up from a network or whatever. And you thought, that sounds really good, and then you check, no AD.
Yeah.
Oh well.
No, let's not go down there. Yeah.
I know. I also want to mention Envision, because I spotted a social media post from them yesterday saying that the Ally feature, now this is this new assistant that Envision brought in, or is bringing in, is now available on the glasses. Now, you've been following this a little bit closer than I have. What do you know about what's going on here?
Yeah, so the Envision Ally assistant has been in beta for a while, but it was not invitation. You had to sign up and be approved to take part in the beta. And the beta's available as a iOS app and also available on the glasses. But it seems like this is more like a public beta. So anyone who has the glasses now, if they run the update, go to your settings, software, double tap check for an update, you will be able to have this Ally feature available to you. Again, it does say this is beta, but like the scenes feature is beta as well. As in, you can still use it, but your mileage may vary. I've been using it, and not on the glasses, I must say. I've been using it on the iPhone. And it's very interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because, we're seeing so many of these now. I've been using Gemini. They've recently released that on the iPhone as a real-time conversational mode. That's all I'm really interested in. And that works really well. So does ChatGPT now. That seems to be a real-time conversation mode most of the time now as well. You can have the response is really quick. You can interrupt it as it's answering a question to correct it. Very, very cool. All of these things are very similar. Now, the difference with Ally is you can tailor the prompt. And what that means is you can say, hey, I want you to be, let's be stupid about it. I want you to be sarcastic and angry, and I want you to do this and do that. That's what a lot of people are getting excited about. But that's more, isn't this quite funny, right? But when it comes down to being useful, you can also say, and I've been playing with these prompts, something like, whenever I say car, describe the make and color or maybe the number plate of the car that's in front of me. Take a picture and do that. Whenever I say, read this, don't give me any opinions. Don't give me any flowery language. Just read the text on the document in front of me. So you can almost tailor it. It's what all of these things do, but a lot of the time you have no control over what they call the prompt, the personality, the information and the way it presents it to you, the AI presents it to you. With Ally, you have total control. I've got mine swearing at me and everything. And again, all that's a bit frivolous, pretend you're this character out of a TV show and, be angry and sarcastic. You soon get over that once you go into more of the detail on how useful it can be. You can customize almost the commands and how it gives you the information. Very interesting.
Is this what they've got right then? Because I think, look, ultimately a lot of this is down to this particular language model having memory, right? It is able to remember things you tell it. So I saw, for example, the other day someone saying, the endless debate around language that just seems to exist where, don't say the following words or don't use, there's a lot of people in America don't like hearing themselves referred to, if they're totally blind, as visually impaired. And that's a very personal thing, right? But I've seen people actually saying that they're telling their assistants now, do not refer to me as visually impaired. When you talk to me, I want to be referred to as a blind person.
Yes.
And, I think it's those kind of details, those nuances, those characters that we're creating of our assistants. In the same way you would, if you had a personal assistant who's a human, you'd do the same thing.
Yeah, you almost give it a set of rules.
I often get people, it doesn't happen a lot, but people sometimes call me Steve. And I'm like, Don't call me Steve. I'm not cool enough to be a Steve. So I'm a Steven, end of story. So just call me Steven. And it's that kind of thing. And it's like, always make sure my name is spelled with a V, not a PH, because that's how it's spelled. That kind of thing, right? You can really customize the detail that you give it. And it remembers that detail. And I think that's something that, we don't have at the minute with Meta AI. We just don't have that yet.
Yeah, there's no comparison at the moment. But I think we do need to be careful, as in you can give, like in ChatGPT, you can give it some, I can't remember what they call it now, but you can give it some information about you in the settings as well. hey, I'm so-and-so, this is what I do, my hobbies are this, I live here, for example. And it will use that as the foundation, if you like, for having a conversation with you. That's slightly different from remembering previous conversations. I don't know how long the memory is conversation-wise on Ally, but again, you can give it its personality. And some of the phrasing used, as with all AI, it's very human-like. Give your AI a personality, and that's why lots of people are having fun with it. But it actually goes further than that. It's more than just give it a personality. It's sort of giving it a set of rules, give it a set of guidelines of how you want it to behave. And, particularly, just putting in, I am blind, for example. You're talking to a blind person, gives it a totally different way of presenting information. So you don't have to say every time, I'm using a screen reader, because it will just assume you are because you've told it right at the start.
Doesn't apologise, does it? Doesn't say, I'm so sorry to hear, or I'd rather be dead, or whatever other phrase that we like to hear. Not so far. Now, I haven't been able to try it on the glasses. I have the Envision glasses that I have only have the 2023 pass, which is why really I haven't talked about them much, because it seems unfair, as the latest edition is 2024, obviously, and we're nearly at the end of that, so it'll be 2025. And we have reached out to Envision. We have reached out to say, look, can you help us out a bit here so we can test this stuff. We haven't managed to get that actioned yet.
No, but I feel slightly uneasy about saying, giving an opinion about something on software which is, nearly 2 years out of date. So I think there is a proviso, because I did update the glasses last night to the beta version and tried to install the beta version of Ally, and it's not available. So I'm assuming if you have the Envision glasses that they need to be the 2024 pass or the professional edition for you to get this Ally Assistant. Which
means essentially you're taking on that subscription, that cost, that subscription cost.
If you've bought them this year, then you will have, or if you've bought them in the past and you have the professional. I believe the professional edition, because there's 3 editions for the Envision glasses: the Read, which basically just gives you OCR, the Home, which gives you access to more features such as object recognition and things like that, and then the Professional, which gives you everything, and plus, I believe, unlimited passes. So they're always up to date with the latest features.
Well, look, we had Karthik Karnan on a while ago, and here he is. Thought we'd play a clip of this in, just reminding people what Ally is and what it is intended to do.
So Ally is our way of reimagining all of what Envision's been doing, right? So Ally, to put it very simply, is a very easy to use conversational personal assistant that you could be having on any platform that you care to use today. Right. Traditionally, the way we have used software is you open an app has buttons, and then you press these buttons, you learn how the app is structured, and you learn this button goes here, this button does that. And then all of a sudden, an overzealous designer comes around and changes everything once every 6 months, and you have to, learn the whole thing again. Right. But the way we see software evolve is changed. And because of AI and because of all the stuff that's happened over the last 2 years, we can now take away all of that complexity and then put a very neat snappy conversational interface that revolves around all the functionalities and capabilities of the software, right? That's what we're doing with Ally. So Ally at its heart is still Envision. So you would still be able to read documents with it. You'll still be able to read all kinds of text. You'll be able to detect objects. You'll be able to recognize faces. You'll be able to do all of these things. But then instead of you having to learn, how the Envision app works and what button to press to get what, you just talk to it, right? You just talk to your Ally. Your Ally has a personality, so it's not this boring, AI bot that some big corporation decides you should be having, and then you have it. You can basically, ask it to, I don't know, throw an expletive or two anytime you want to, right? You can have it. You can modify its personality. And it also learns a thing or two about you as you keep using it, right? And you can say, hey, I'm someone who's vegan, or I'm someone who likes to play this, or I'm someone who likes to go out for walks. And you can just keep talking to it, and then it just builds a memory of you over time, right? And then you can just go ahead and have you're sitting at a restaurant scanning a menu. It just tells you, hey, you know what? I think you're trying to go ahead and cut back on sugar. So maybe you should, not have the desserts.
Yeah. Well, as I said in the interview, I have, let's just say, family members who tell me that on a fairly regular basis, whilst at the same time ordering desserts. It's very unfair, I think. But it seems to me like, in the early days of this, when we were seeing the AI chatbots emerge, I immediately think about Call Annie, which was the app that a lot of us played around with. And what you were given a personality to choose from, or I think in the early days it was just one personality, wasn't it? It was Annie herself, and that was it.
Then there was everything. Hamsters in space.
That's
Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I think George Washington.
Yeah, well, let's see, exactly the same thing. All this AI things and the different services, a lot of it comes down to the way that the prompting has been tuned. You can say, hey, you are Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And it will act in that way. Part of the success of Be My Eyes was the amount of time they spent tuning it for our needs, with the long beta testing with so many users giving their feedback. Meant that Be My Eyes could tune it, that the information that we get back was really helpful for us, the amount of detail that we need as visually impaired or blind people. So that makes all the difference. Ally is quite unique in that you can tune it to so many different things quite easily. And as Karthik mentioned there, the ease of use of it is very interesting. I'd be quite interested to see how people get on with this, as a wearable on the Envision glasses, the convenience of having AI like this. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
The challenge, I think, if I'm being brutally honest, is getting new customers to those Envision glasses today. Because no matter how you frame it, pardon the pun, but no matter how you frame this, thank you, I wasn't even intentional. But look, you're buying a pair of glasses today, if you're buying the Envision glasses today, which is a product that essentially was discontinued in 2019. That is Google Glass.
Yes,
the glasses
the
themselves.
hardware it's based on. We should be clear on that. Google Glass, yeah.
Envision bought in, a number of these pairs. They've installed their software onto them, and that's what Google Glass Enterprise Edition became. It was no longer sold to the public as Google Glass. It was sold to businesses who wanted to put their technology onto it. Now, that has never been updated. And there's talk, but there's nothing really concrete that Google's going to come up with a new edition of this anytime soon. It is likely something is in the works. I think the success of the Meta frames has probably pushed any idea of coming up with a new design of, some kind of wearable in glasses form to the forefront of a lot of companies' minds. You will likely see that. I think even Apple, they would never admit this, and maybe they don't think it. Well, there's rumors. Yeah, there's always rumors. But, I think Apple, if they admit it or not, I think that they may have looked at the Vision Pro now and think, I wish we'd just gone for glasses. We should push the into a glasses form. But, of course, you have to remember how long the Vision Pro would have been in production. I mean, and from the early days to now. So, it's a long road and a lot of money has been spent on that. The technology in it, though, is something that is going to be more interesting long term if they can build that into some kind of wearable, regular pair of glasses. That's where Apple can get this right. But as we all know, Apple don't do things quickly. Yeah, Google might come along quicker. But Meta's out front on this at the moment, for sure. This
is future stuff. And I agree with you. I think Envision have an upward hill to climb here because, the market has changed since they've released them initially. I mean, saying that, they are standalone. They've got a unique selling point here. You don't need a smartphone paired with these to use them.
No.
They are a standalone unit. You can just wear the glasses without your phone and they will still work. But yeah, I think you're right. For the price point, I mean, everyone's looking at the Meta Ray-Bans saying, well, even with the limitations of AI, with that price point, is that a better way to go,
I think it's because we're looking down the line, aren't we? We're if you're buying the Envision or the Meta Ray-Bans today, you're buying on promise to some degree. Because what it can do. And a lot of people, I'm seeing a lot of people who are buying them on the forums, on Facebook and in other places, people saying, I bought these and I expected the AI to be better than this. I expected it to be like Envision. But it's not, because that's not what Meta AI is.
It's not Be My Eyes. It's not.
No. It's not Be My AI. That's the point, right? So even Be My Eyes.
Sorry, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah. But I mean, you've got Be My Eyes, Be My Eyes, which is the human contact, right? You've got that through the glasses, but you don't have the AI through there yet. And I think that is just quite simply because Be My AI works off OpenAI, which is a separate company to Meta.
Yeah.
So you have a bit of and I like to try and break this down a bit for people because I think we get lost in these terms sometimes, and a lot of people out there don't have a clue what half of this stuff means. and I think it's just important to sometimes stop and just reset a little bit, So OpenAI is a company of its own. It's created a product called ChatGPT. That's what's powering, that's the engine that powers Be My AI. So when you use that, you're using the OpenAI system. When you're using the Meta Ray-Bans, you're using Meta AI, which is their product, Meta AI. And that product is what runs on the Meta Ray-Ban glasses. And the problem there for us is that we kind of want the OpenAI one.
Well, I mean, it's not even that so much. Again, a lot of it does, as I keep saying, comes down to prompting. Meta AI isn't designed, isn't prompted, isn't tuned for us. So hence, it doesn't do OCR. It won't read an entire document. It will take a look and say, hey, this is a letter about, and give you a summary of it. You try and get it to read word for word.
Yeah.
Will not do that because it hasn't been tuned. This is a mainstream product. It isn't aimed at us. Now, that may change in the future. And of course, with the Meta event where we saw Llama 3.2, which is what they call their AI service, Llama, 3.2 was very impressive and, on a par with ChatGPT and Gemini and everything else we've seen so far. But the fact is, right now, that's not available on the Meta Ray-Bans. It's still using 3.1.
But this is why earlier in the year when we saw the Meta event, the Meta Connect event earlier this year, we were quite excited because we saw, obviously, the news about Be My Eyes coming, and that's great. But then we were looking at this other project, Project Orion, which is these augmented reality glasses. Now, initially I thought, okay, right, augmented reality, visual. But then we hear that the technology like Envision could go on to those glasses. So suddenly there's a platform developing, which is exactly what Envision jumped on with Google Glass. So, Envision needs that platform, and this new product hasn't been released yet. But when it comes, possibly next year, I'd imagine it's going to be next year, but we don't know for definite. That is when things might get even more interesting in this space. I will say, this is a great time to be observing this, if not taking part in it. If you're kind of on the sidelines a bit about what to buy and should I buy a pair of Meta Ray-Bans today? Is this an Orion thing going to be better? Should I wait? Look, I think the truth is Orion's not available yet. And, there's always an excuse not to buy something. There's always an excuse to buy something, right? It's down to you and your personal choice and whether you can afford to buy them or not. Today, if you buy the Meta Ray-Ban glasses, you will get a basic AI, which you can use to, tell the time and, do the kind of Lady A type functionalities. But also, you've got a bit of description going on. It's nowhere near as good as Envision. It's nowhere near as good as, Be My AI, Seeing AI. It's not going to be as good as all that stuff.
No,
you'll still need to use that, and you'll still have to use the camera on your phone to use all that stuff. Be My Eyes is on there, and the fact that they have the accessibility category, the fact they have Be My Eyes in there, says there's the beginnings of something here.
Potential.
So I think you're buying potential, you're buying a promise with some functionality already, which I think is good. So would I buy a Meta Ray-Bans today on that basis? Yes, and I've bought 2 pairs. Mainly because the dog chose the first pair. So
And I should say, I see a lot of posts on the blind users of Meta Ray-Ban Facebook group from people saying, you won't believe how these help me out today. And they're talking about the AI. Because I always say, for me, it's not the AI. The AI is something I tried for the first few days of getting the Meta Ray-Bans. And then just sort of, okay, it could be useful, but right now it's not for me. The big things for me are now the Be My Eyes integration is absolutely amazing. Being able to call my family and getting help when I'm stuck somewhere through a WhatsApp video call or Messenger video call, also amazing. Those 2 functions alone for me make it totally worthwhile for the price point. I would go out on a limb and say, for me, the Meta Ray-Bans, even right now with the level of AI, are the ones to go for.
I think with the voice control improving as well, being able to take a picture and send it to someone hands-free, I don't think it's very easy to look past that because blind people in pictures are often not really a thing.
Yeah,
that's changing.
Cool.
That is changing a lot, and I certainly felt it. I remember the first time sending a picture to my wife. She was asking where I was, and I'd been walking down to the village or something, and I'd managed to get there a little bit ahead of time, which is unusual for me. And I thought, I'm going to send her a picture, and I'll prove to her that I've arrived here. And being able to do that and know that I'm taking a picture of something that isn't my feet, is great. And just that alone was so empowering. Just that on its own And that was day one, and just walking around, what time is it? I know it sounds basic, but that's the day-to-day stuff that we need, So what's the time? I remember saying this once on the show. It's always the simplest things that blind people tend to have the most difficulty accessing. Like the other night, I was thinking about radio. It's like, do you know there's still nothing out there? There's still no talking radio that tells you, digital radio that tells you what you're listening to. Nothing.
Yeah, it's true.
And I know that you could say, well, the smart speaker and all. Yeah, that's fine.
Smart speaker
replaced. What if you want an actual radio? Everybody has the internet at home, right? So if you wanted to listen to, a radio station, you're having to rely on, and there have been attempts in the past, some utterly horrific attempts in the past.
I don't know why it's so difficult, but I mean, it's been a few hundred years of radio, isn't it? So and they still haven't done it. So.
One day they'll crack it.
Yeah, forget it. We've got smart speakers now for $30, so we're fine, thank you. But you're right. Well, the internet can't be taken for granted for a lot of people.
But the point I'm making is that sometimes the most basic things that we challenge, and I remember losing vision from 2017 to about 2019. I used to shout a lot about this on the show. I'd be like, I can't tell the time anymore.
Yeah,
I know it sounds silly because, of course, you can buy a talking watch. Yes, that's right, you can. But the point is, it does show you that there are certain things that just go away that you need access to, and that's definitely.
Do you remember when I got hold of these, the first time I got hold of these Meta Ray-Bans, and I came on here and I said, I don't actually think these are the glasses for blind people, because everyone was shouting about them. And that was purely down to my experience of AI and the frustration of the limitations there. It wouldn't read, it won't OCR.
Yeah.
And the descriptions weren't that useful to me. You get left and right mixed up a lot. And that hasn't changed for me. The AI still has those frustrations. But it's the other things where I've realized, actually, that is more important. Be My Eyes. We keep saying Be My Eyes. Let's not forget Ira is also
yes,
available on there as well through a WhatsApp call that you do need to put hands on your phone, but still for you Ira subscribers.
Look, let's be honest, Ira's a little bit less official. I mean, it's official in the sense that you can do it. It's not like some kind of weird thing, but it's not like Ira are embedded with Meta. In the way
that's right. They found a workaround.
My Eyes have. They're using the WhatsApp functionality, which is brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that because I always forget to mention that Ira are available on the Meta glasses, and we should make it clear that they are.
Anyway, let's move on because the big story of the day is the one that excites me, and that is the Mantis Q40 getting text-to-speech. And a lot of you out there I know are quite excited about this, especially those of you who have the device, thinking, oh, that's an interesting update. But does it mean you need a brand new device? Does it mean something has to change? Because you may be aware there's no headphone jack on there. There's no speakers.
No speakers. Oh, no.
So how on earth are they going to add audio? Well, earlier this morning, I spoke to Andrew Flatris from Humanware to tell me all about it. Well, first off, Andrew, welcome back to Double Tap. Great to have you here.
That's great to be here, Stephen.
And look, I actually have with me my own Mantis Q40. I'm showing you. Oh, the loveliness. And it's going to get even better with new updates. Look, I know we could, I want to get into the small talk stuff, but I kind of just want to also get to the updates because this is cool.
It is. So you're referring to version 2.4. This update is going to bring text-to-speech and audio support to the Mantis Q40, as well as other features. So, and it's great. I mean, this has been a long time waiting for. I think there's a lot of people out there, a lot of users of the Mantis that have been requesting text-to-speech. And of course, we don't have onboard speakers on the Mantis. So we had to really think outside of the box of how we could support audio and text-to-speech. And I'm sure you're intrigued to know how we're doing it. So I will continue with how we do this. And the way that we're supporting it is through Bluetooth. So we don't have, as I said, we don't have any hardware speakers or audio specifications on the device itself other than your piezo buzzer. But the way that we'll connect is by Bluetooth speakers. So when we go to pair up either your speakers or headsets, the audio will then directly come through to your headsets itself or your speakers, and you'll then be able to manage your speakers as well. So you can have multiple speakers, and as soon as you go onto your, let's say, your screen reader, of course, your text-to-speech, all of your audio will be removed from your speakers from your Mantis, but then when you come back to the Mantis, it should then join back again, and you'll continue having that text-to-speech capabilities. So there are some new settings that will come your way under the settings menu. So there'll be an option called speech settings. And in there, you'll have all of the wonderful, great benefits that you can use to have audio support. So downloading your different voices, languages, speak word under the cursor. So the Mantis is really I think a really good device also to learn Braille. For those that are not proficient at Braille, I've always kind of, said that, well, if you're a QWERTY user and you're now starting to think about learning Braille, the QWERTY, without even text-to-speech, was a good way of learning, because as you're typing and you're familiar with typing on the QWERTY keyboard, it comes out in Braille grade 2, and then you can expand that word by clicking on the contractions and it expands into grade 1. So that's kind of one of the real good benefits of having the Mantis itself. But now with the text-to-speech, that's just going to further improve and make those that are learning Braille more Braille proficient with that added support.
Yeah, because that's funnily enough exactly one of the reasons I like the Mantis so much. And it's a lot of our listeners have said the same thing. They've said that, isn't it wonderful? You type something and maybe it could be punctuation. Sometimes that's the ones that fall away, because if you're learning Braille, you're focusing so much on the letters, you kind of forget about the, you might the full stop or the comma, but then it's like, what's a semicolon again? And just being able to press it and then feel it and go, that's what that is, or that's what a question mark is. In some ways it kind of reinforces the learning, in some ways it even helps with the learning. So you're absolutely right. I want to talk a bit more about the audio, because you're right. You and I think, had this discussion a while ago about the idea of bringing speech into this. And you were a bit coy back then. You're probably thinking, I know what's coming down the line. I'm not telling him. But, I kind of wondered, was Bluetooth the way out? Because there was no other way. There was no other way to get audio out there. And I must admit, when people heard the announcement online, people had posted on social media saying, hey, look, it seems like the Mantis is getting text-to-speech. Some of the initial feedback was, oh no, please tell me I don't need to buy a new Mantis today. There's not a new version coming, is there? I think a lot of people will be pleased today that you've managed to build this into the existing device. No one's expected to go and buy a brand new one.
Yeah, that was when we fought back with, obviously this is an American printing house product. And when we first had the request for products, we didn't include a kind of audio chip in there at all. So it was never considered. And then when, of course, Mantis was established and was launched, then people started to talk about, I wonder if text-to-speech was going to be available. So then we thought about this a few years back. How we play this? We looked at actually a replacement of a board. We did look at that option. That actually was going to be another 18-month project in itself. Mm-hmm. And of course, it wasn't really feasible. So the only direction going forward was, of course, looking at the Bluetooth. Now, some people may not like that, but we thought that it was a trade-off. We thought that, okay, well, you don't need to pay for any upgrades. It's going to come for all those that have a Mantis. And it's a choice, because at the end of the day, it's a Braille display primarily. And so if you don't want text-to-speech, you just don't simply add that CTS support through headsets. But yeah, we're glad to say that we're moving forward with the Bluetooth connection.
And what about latency? Because that's always a challenge when it comes to Bluetooth, isn't it? That you end up with a lag between pressing a key on the keyboard and getting that speech output in your ear. What can you tell us about that?
So we're currently actually in beta still, believe it or not. We are looking to launch on the week of I think it's the 7th of December. So you're the first to know about this, of course.
It's exciting. It's exciting.
But yeah, we've had some really good feedback. The latency, it's not that bad at all. In fact, it's quite responsive. The only reports that we've had was the caps lock. And this was a really good comment from one of the beta testers. So when we're using the caps lock today with the Mantis, you hear a beep and a double beep. So a beep to tell you that it's currently on, and a double beep to tell you that it's currently off. Now, when we had that connected to our Bluetooth headsets, there was a lag with the beeps, and that was really annoying for users, which I completely understand. So there was a beep, and the next minute you hear another beep on your headsets. So we've changed that entirely. We've now completely changed that, and by announcing caps on and caps off. So we've avoided the double beeps and the beeps. But that's pretty much it in terms of the feedback we've had, and negativity with the connection on now. There's pretty responsive, I have to say.
Okay. And like you say, there's going to be a bit of a perhaps early confusion with this when it comes to being able to switch from one device to another, from essentially the note taker to say the iPhone or to your computer, how will the text-to-speech work? You kind of mentioned that, but let's dig into that a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So if I'm using this and I'm using it in essentially standalone mode, I'm using it as a note taker, I've got the speech coming through my Bluetooth, and then I connect to my MacBook, for example. What happens to that text-to-speech? What's the handoff process like?
Okay, so the pairing would disconnect. Okay, we'll say the pairing won't disconnect, but the connection will disconnect. So then you're predominantly then using your Braille display Mantis with your computer. And if you've got your headsets connected to your Mac, then it may be that you might need to push a button on your headsets to kind of change that connection. And that's kind of expectations now. I mean, that's nothing from what we're doing. That's just general headphones, switching between connections, because you could have headsets connected to multiple devices. Now, once you've then gone out of terminal back into the Mantis standalone apps, it then should rejoin the connection again. But again, depending on the speaker or headset manufacturer, you may need to press a button on your headsets to regain that channel again. But again, it's relatively responsive. It all depends on how many Bluetooth audio connections that you have set up with your headsets.
Yeah, because we all know how these headsets work. Sometimes it depends on the manufacturer and all of that. Sometimes, as you say, you can auto switch. There's no opportunity here to have the audio from your MacBook, say, come through the Mantis into the Bluetooth headset. No,
we did look at that. Believe it or not, we did look at that. That was going to cause a lot of lagging, to be honest, and so we didn't think that was going to be appreciated. So yeah, we didn't go down that direction.
That makes sense, I suppose. If it's going to add lag to the problem, then that's the last thing we need. It would just cause more problems than solve. Okay, very interesting. So this is all coming out, as you say, 7th of December. The update, I guess, rolls out fully. What else is in there? Because I'm imagining there's other bits and pieces going on.
Yeah, sure. Well, so this update does affect all Braille displays. So that includes the Braille BI 40 and 20X. And so it will include two additional modules, online modules, which are Wiktionary and Wikipedia access. And this is great because you could be in your editor, you could be in your Victor Reader or library application, and you could be reading the book and perhaps you just want to search that particular word in Wiktionary or Wikipedia. So using a shortcut, you'll be able to bring those two modules up and find more information about that particular word. So the Wiktionary and Wikipedia, you will need to have online capabilities. You'll need to be on the internet, of course. If you're not online, we also offer an offline dictionary called WordNet. So altogether, there's actually 3 modules that we've introduced: dictionary, offline dictionary, online dictionary, and of course, Wiktionary will be available to you. We then also included EPUB 2 unprotected file support. And we've heard a lot of people excited about that in itself. There's a lot of EPUB 2 books out there, but I really want to clarify that these are EPUB 2 unprotected files. Okay, if they're EPUB 3, providing the EPUB 3 is unprotected and it has a fallback, they could potentially work. But I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that it is EPUB 2 unprotected files. If you've got a protection on those files, then we can't unfortunately open them.
Okay. I suppose with the introduction of text-to-speech, one of the things that is going to come up, I guess, is the content services that exist on the Mantis. So, already you obviously have access to, from your SD card, you can read books, you can, as you say, the EPUB files that are unprotected, all that kind of stuff. It's all there. But, are you looking at building in more services, or do you feel that the Mantis has kind of got the right amount of services on it at the moment compared to, say, the BI range of Braille displays?
Yeah, very good question. And that was a very good point raised when we was developing this. And we are looking to include additional libraries, not on this version, not on version 2.4, we won't be including additional libraries. But what you can do is if you do have access to audio books, then they will certainly play directly from your USB or SD card through the library application, because now that we have the audio support. But we don't have direct access to some of those libraries that are on the Braille 40 and 20. So that's something that we will work towards, more likely for the next version, 2.5.
You did mention voices as well. I'm a bit of a little bit of a cheater when it comes to my voices. I'm always changing mine. I can't quite decide on which one I like and which one I don't. So what kind of range of voices can we get from the Mantis? Because I suppose I'm kind of thinking, well, it's kind of fairly basic in a way. You just get some basic voices on there, eloquence, for example. But it's not that, is it? You're going to be getting some, or at least a range of voices.
Yes, yeah. So you've got the a cappella voices. So like all of our HumanWare Braille products, we do support a cappella voices. So there's a lot of voices and languages to choose from. We will include 3 additional voices. Melanie, which is a French-Canadian voice, really good voice. Another Melanie, which is the English Canada. And I think you pronounce this as Vidi, which is the English India voice. So there are various different voices that are available. And the way that you'll do this is through your language profiles. So in your language profiles that you still have today, there will be a content option. And that's really important to know, Stephen, because if you've got your voice downloaded from your speech settings, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to talk when you're listening to a book on your library app or in your editor. You need to make sure that your profile is making sure that it's using the content voice. And so you could actually have a menu voice that is different to your content voice, for example.
Interesting. That's good. It's a little bit like the Victor Stream, isn't it? You can do that there. Kind of applying these rules across the different devices now, which is kind of cool. And in terms of setup and the process, because everyone's going to go and download this immediately as soon as it's available. What is the process for actually getting started here? Are you adding a Bluetooth device, and once it recognizes a pair of headphones or speakers, does it just start talking? Do you have to turn it on? How does it work?
Sure. So once you've updated the software, and you can update it through update on a USB or SD card or over the air. And as soon as you start pairing your audio headset, so you'd go to your settings, you'd go to Bluetooth and choose pair audio devices. It will search for any devices available. Make sure your headsets are in the discoverable mode. And then once it's connected, it should then, providing you've got, let's say, an English system voice set or an English system setup, your voice would default to the default English voice, which I believe, don't quote me on this, I think it may be Samantha or Sharona. Could be. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but it should have a default.
It's not Daniel, because I hate Daniel, but I know he's probably, I don't think if he's an a cappella voice or not, but yeah, Daniel, I can't know. Stan,
he is,
sorry.
He is actually on there, unfortunately, yeah.
Oh, God, I'll avoid that one.
And actually, a lot of people have asked, how do I listen to these voices? Is there a way I've listened before I download? There isn't, unfortunately, an option on the device, but you can go to the a cappella website, and there is an option that you can preview some of the voices that are available. But unfortunately, you can't preview those voices on the Mantis itself. You'll just simply have to download it, have a check it out, and if it's good, keep it. If not, then you can just continue to download another voice.
We're talking to you early today because you're heading off to an event at the British Library in London. Tell us a bit about that, what you're doing today.
Yeah, so this is an event that's been hosted by the RNIB, and it's the celebration of Louis Braille of 200th year. HumanWare are one of the main sponsors of the event, and there'll be a panelist, very big panelist. I think there's a young girl whose name is Betsy Griffin. She's a young girl who's wrote her own book, and she went blind at a young age, so she'll be on the panelist. Of course, you've got David Blunkett as himself, and I think there's Jane Constant, who's a singer, and also a leader in the Accessibility Act, I believe. So yeah, it's a very good panelist. We'll be there, obviously showcasing some of the new Braille technology and talking about some of the old Braille technology, but it's all going to be about Braille in celebration of Louis Braille himself, of what he's done with Braille, how he's created it. So really looking forward to the event and excited to talk to a lot of people and talk about Braille.
Good luck at the event today at the British Library with RNIB. Sounds like a great event celebrating the life of Louis Braille and looking to the future as well with all this amazing technology. And I can't wait for the update to the Mantis Q40 on the 7th of December. I'll be eagerly awaiting it. I'll be up early that morning.
It's the week of the 7th. I think it's going to be it's going to be the 11th.
Okay.
It's the 11th of the, just to clarify that.
Oh, I'll get up in the 11th then. I'll get a lone lie on the 7th. Andrew, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thanks, Stephen. Take care.
So, to be clear, a week of the 7th, meaning any time up to and beyond The 7th of December, it will be coming out, the Mantis Q40 update. I've got to say, I'm quite excited. Could you tell?
Well, I was going to point out how refreshing it is to see you so unbiased on an interview there, Stephen Scott. It was almost like you were dancing in the background.
Yeah, I was like, da 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 da.
Okay, all right. Fantastic, as your excitement shows us, right? I think you're not alone. I think a lot of people are going to be excited by this. I want to ask you a question, though. Why? Why are you so excited by this?
Don't bring me down, priest.
No, honestly, I'm not. And I think Andrew gave some amazing points there, particularly on, for learning purposes. Absolutely. If the voice, if the text-to-speech was part of a learning mode, if you like, I totally understand it. I am just slightly confused by your excitement by I want speech, because the whole point of the Mantis for you was, hey, I've got a QWERTY keyboard and I've got an amazing Braille display all built in.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's like a couple of different things. I suppose I don't feel I'm fast enough with Braille to keep up with the speed of reading a document or reading notes as much as I would like. But I'd love the idea of having a note taker that I can listen to as well as read the Braille. So, I mean, a classic example of this would be, using the note taker to take down a phone number. So you take down the phone number, you can type it in QWERTY. That's great. You've got it stored in your Mantis. You can easily recall that note at any point, no matter where you are. You don't need to be connected to a computer, any of that. And I can read that number back. But if I need to read it in a hurry, I can then just quickly listen to it. Or I can, if I'm unsure of a letter or a number or whatever, I can just check it on the Braille display. It gives me those options.
Check it. It gives you those. Absolutely, I get it.
Gives me all the options.
Isn't there a danger here, a risk, a potential that you're actually harming your learning of Braille because you're going to fall back to the audio option all the time?
Do you know, it's funny you say that, right? I can see why you might think that. I felt it was the opposite, actually. Because what I was finding was, as I was typing, I would go to the Braille display, check something. And I used the example in there about the semicolon. It's usually the punctuation. It's things that you don't maybe use all the time.
You're so correct on that as well.
Forget.
The amount of times I forgot what at is. Yeah.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So you go, what is that again? And just being able to type it and go, it's that. Okay, that's it. That reinforces it. And I think in some ways it actually makes you want to use the Braille more than the audio. I've actually found in recent, I remember when I first got my Braille display, I got the Focus 14 at work years ago. And when I started using it, I had the speech on with the phone and I had it connected and I was using it, and I was finding I was quite slow. But then as I started speeding up, I turned the speech on the phone off and I found that quite enjoyable. So I just think for some people, it might be a bit of a bridge. For others, it can just be a useful tool to have, especially for learning, but I think also for just, getting to the information quickly, or, if you're not quick enough, like I'm read with my right hand. So when I'm typing something, to go back and check quickly on the Braille display is like, you got to stop, you got to take your hands off the keyboard and
of course
hand left to right on the Braille display. So yeah, I think having the speech is going to make a big difference. Also, I love the idea of it just being a standalone note taker. I don't have to have it connected to anything to get audio out of it. That's really useful. I mean, I think about people who use these devices for presentations and notes. I actually started doing it here. So I use this program, as you know, called Farrago, which is the soundboard system, which is on a Mac. It's a piece of software. It's an app you can download, and basically you can select a piece of audio and you can play it. And that's how I play in a lot of the clips and the stuff we do here.
Serious stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And yes, like dogs barking,
dogs,
cookie monsters and all that.
Yeah.
So, I can go there and I can hear in my ear, I can hear it say cookie monster or dog barking. And I know that when I press the button, that's what will play. But the problem is when you're doing a live show, sometimes you don't want to be interrupted constantly with that voice.
That's right.
So having the Braille display there as well means I can just quickly check it. But I do work with a combination of both. So what I'll tend to do is I'll put my focus, if you like, on that particular button, but then I forget, did I actually put the focus on that button? And it used to be the case I'd be like pressing left and right a few times just to make sure I was definitely on it. And now I can just go, hang on. So I've got the combination of both there. And I think that's what's the joy here of this. Now, obviously, it's still going to apply. Text-to-speech will still work across all the other devices as well. The Bluetooth is really only for the menu and the system itself. But I think it's going to open up like I said to Andrew there, it could open up the door for a lot of other potential content providers, I'm thinking audiobooks and such like to come through that device as well. That could be where things get interesting. I think it's a great addition. And I kind of love that they've managed to bring it in despite the challenges that they obviously had, which was it didn't even have an audio chip in it.
Well, I mean, they had the Bluetooth chip in there, so there was always that option anyway. I'm glad they did go down that route rather than say, hey, here's the Mantis V2, now with speakers and a headphone jack.
That would be difficult.
And, people would have felt like they were missing out on something. So, yeah, I mean, they've obviously had the feedback. I remember when we first started talking about the Mantis when it was first released and saying about, it'd be great if it had, text-to-speech in it as well. And obviously, we finally got there.
But bear in mind that the BI-20 and the BI-40X Braille displays do have speech in them. So that was where it's a case of, well, hang on, if it's possible there, why isn't it possible here? And, having a bit of a play with the BI-20X a while ago, that did make me kind of long for having speech on the Mantis as well.
Do you know what I come down to? I kind of think all this longing for text-to-speech, aren't you really just longing for a laptop?
What, like maybe an Optima Braille laptop type thing?
Well, I mean, that's what I'm looking at with the Braille. I'm talking about being able to...
Standalone machine, with everything.
A standalone machine. And the thing here I keep coming back to is the difference between a mainstream operating system and, a proprietary Braille operating system.
Mm-hmm.
We come back to that argument of, should people really need to learn a separate way to do things when they get out in the real world?
Right, klaxon going off. We're not going down that road because we're out of time. We'll
okay.
come back to this, I'm sure. Your thoughts always welcome in all this. It's been an interesting day for sure with this announcement. What do you think about it? Get in touch in all the usual ways. Feedback at doubletaponair.com. You can call us, of course, on the usual number and WhatsApp us as well. We will get into all your feedback. We're going to do a full day of feedback tomorrow on the show because we get so many of your comments in. So looking forward to that. We'll catch you for that on tomorrow's Double Tap. Thank you, Shaun. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.